Did you know that there are a whole range of cars in the UK market that you can buy for under £6,000 that are considered cheap luxury? Well, in today's video, I'm going to talk you through all of those cars. Hey, I'm Cars with Ben, and I make weekly car content. So if you do like car content, don't forget to leave a subscribe and let me know you've done so down below. Let's jump straight into today's video. Firstly, everyone, I just want to say thank you for 300 subscribers. It's been amazing to see all the new people join. So if you are new, don't forget to check out my channel first before subscribing. Now, with the first car I've chosen from this list is the Jaguar XJ series from 2005 model roughly, which you can buy for £5,250. That's right, a pretty luxury car for its time and a pretty good bargain considering. Now, this is very much a Marmite car. You either really like it or you don't. And with this area of Jags, it's very difficult because I found that some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. Now, this car came with a 240 horsepower, 7.8 to 60 time of to 60. So it wasn't terribly fast, but it was really all about luxury. And if you have one of these at the time, you probably seem to be doing quite well. And I think for the price that I've just shown, I think it's a pretty good car. Now, this comes with all the typical Jaguar expectancies that you would like to see. You know, it's got that beige interior, it has that nice wooden effect, and I really like this. I think they've stopped doing this a little bit now, but this is that era where it started to end and they started to make it more modern and just a bit more usable. Obviously, that interior was never going to be usable every day in today's world. And that being said, with the reliability of these cars, they were pretty poor from the era. You know, everyone knows that Jaguar Land Rover do have several issues when it comes to their cars, and that's not to say all of them, but again, this was one of those cars that was played with that issue with the XJ just being heavy on maintenance, heavy on fuel, and just generally not a great car to live with every day. But still, a car I do love for what you get for the price. At number 2 is one of my favourite cars on this list, and a very special car. It is the Citroen C6 from 2005 all the way to 2012 in those production years. The Citroen C6 is a car that I really like because it's just so different from what we've seen on the list completely and anywhere else that you might look in its French class, which there aren't many of. Now, this car came with a 2.2 to 3 litre engine and wasn't produced for very long, and you don't really see that many of them. What I particularly like the C6 is that it had amazingly fun suspension. Now, it was very much famed for its bouncy suspension, and I think that really sums up the French car scene, really. You can get one of these for just under 6k, or if you want to spend a bit more, you could probably get one for around 7 to 8 if you wanted a good one. Now, they are kind of not dropping horrendously, but they have dropped a lot, obviously, since they've come out. I think they might even potentially go back up in the future. Who knows? It could be a future classic, because this is a car that you do not see very often. Now, that interior is very much French, and I do love the interior a lot more than the Jag, just because it's so plain and a bit more easy to look at. I think with the Jag, it's all very tucked in. Now, when you look at one of these on the road, you definitely can't mistake it for anything else, and I think it's definitely worth considering if you are in that cheap luxury market and you wanted something very different, because for me, it just stands out. The back end is just very different, and you've got a lot of leg space when you go to the back, and you could probably get quite a lot of people back there if you go into a meeting as well. At my number 3 spot is the Audi A8. Yes, that's right, the Audi A8 that was made from 2003 to 2011, so quite a long production run. Now, this car is most famed for being in the films Transporter. And initially, you might sort of look at this and go, no, that would be a terrible decision. But you've got to remember this has a bit more fame to it, this one. I kind of like that because it's got a bit more character in a way, if you like. Now, with this car, it came with a 207 to 443 horsepower, so it had a huge different ranging depending on the engine size. You can actually get these now for just under £5,000. Now, that is a lot of car for £5,000. However, do be aware there's a lot of maintenance with that. You know, the road tax is up to 600 quid on some of these, and the fuel wasn't great, being 19 to 34 mpg, being that if you had the top of the range model, it probably wouldn't be that great to run. So do bear that in mind, because it came with a V8, as you can see here, very compact V8. A car that, you know, I had to pick because it, in its class and its price, really fitted the bill for this car, and I really like it. You know, the interior on the Audi may not have been as good as what we're used to, but the size of the car was huge. Just looking at that boot, you could get a lot in there. You know, you could get several people in there if you wanted to, or a bike. So I think it really has its own when it comes to sort of that luxury limo space for just a mere £5,000. And you're still getting a fairly modern car if you go for the 2011 version. At number 4, we have another German car on the list which is a Mercedes CLS from the 2005 era. Now, this is easily a car that could have sold for up to 50 to 60k back when it first arrived, and they made this car up until around 2010 when they started introducing the newer models. And I actually really like this. This was the only Mercedes of its era that I actually quite liked, and it was just different. You know, it looked sort of different on the road. It was very nice, sleek, had a sort of coupe back end, and now you can buy one of these for as little as £3,000. So it's really, really cheap. Now, bear in mind the maintenance on this car is going to be heavy. So if you are thinking about a Mercedes like this, engines of this era were notably very unreliable and just broke down quite often. Now, that's not to be said for every single one, but they did come with a nice 224 horsepower, 6.8 seconds to 60, and a reasonable enough £300 road tax for what you're getting, a pretty large four-door kind of coupe-looking car. And I think that's why I like the CLS. It had a coupe look to a four-door car, and it just nothing else looked quite like it. And, you know, even now, I think it still looks really good on the road. Now, generally, these cars had a pretty compact, tight engine, which meant a lot could go wrong, and that was often the case when it came to this car. Now, obviously, with the engine size being pretty thirsty, depending on the size of when you went to a standard, to an AMG, owners also noted that there was issues in the valve body, which were problematic, and the electronic transmission, which sometimes had an issue, as well as the actual gearbox, which was automatic as well. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, it is the final car on this list. It is the Volkswagen Phaeton from 2003 to 2015, so a fairly long production run. That is a very rare car. Now, this car is very similar to the Audi A8 in which it shares a lot of its platform. However, it does remind me of the Citroen C6 in which it is very rare. Now, this car was made in its thousands in certain areas, so it only went to the US for certain few thousand, and then maybe in Europe it was up to 10,000. So not a lot of cars were produced, which make it incredibly rare, similar to like Lamborghinis maybe of the time, and Ferraris were more common than this Phaeton. If you know about this car, you know. Now, this was a car that you can now buy for under 3,000, just under £4,000, and this is a car which used to be around £80,000. It was a very luxury saloon. Now, the interior is pretty boring, and it isn't very interesting there, very much businessman-like. However, it does come with a 221 horsepower to 443 horsepower engine. Now, that is quite a lot. Now, looking at that legroom and interior, there is quite a lot of reason to believe why this was so luxury. You know, you've got those folding up windows, you've got those long areas to put your legs, you know, you've got a lot of space to play with here. This also came with a V12, which is very similar to the W16 that they used in the Veyron. So it's a very, very powerful and well-respected engine used in this car. And it also, again, used a lot of components from Audi. However, that doesn't mean this car is necessarily any cheaper to run, so it's just worth bearing that in mind if you are looking at some of these. It also had a Parker score of 4.1 out of 5, so really not a bad effort from Volkswagen, and a lot of people who did buy this car, which was very minimal, did really like it, so it's a shame that it didn't go on to sell more. However, that initial price probably did put people off to start with. I hope you've enjoyed this video, everyone, and I am looking forward to making more car content in the future. If you have, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and also comment down below if you have subscribed. It lets me know who's subscribing and who's new to the channel, because it's growing now and I'm really enjoying it. So I will see you guys in the next car content video.